Mr. Bakker, do you think that any government, or Reverend Bakker, I'm sorry, do you think that any government regulation or law requiring financial disclosure, financial records, that kind of regulatory statute is violative of the separation of church and state?
I think there's a limited regulation that government will always have. But I think when it gets into who will minister the gospel, who has the ability, whether it be on the airwaves in church or in a meeting on the street, there's where the danger comes.
What about financial disclosure? Don't the people who donate money to your organization, don't they have a right to know where their money is being spent?
Oh, by all means. And this is where I think the evangelicals are right now to disclosure. We've been disclosing for a period of time, and have always been in favor of disclosure, full financial disclosure. In fact, we just this month, in our monthly year-end magazine, published a Haskin & Sells audit of the ministry and myself. And we believe the time has come for voluntarily disclosing our financial, where we spend the money, how it goes, and whatever the people basically want to know.
Why now, Jim?
I feel like it was basically all along was available, but I think the climate now in the country is such that people are asking questions, and the reason you're here today, I think people are asking questions. What about the born-again movement? What about what is happening? And they're realizing that we are raising millions of dollars, all the different ministries, and they have a right to know where it's going, and they should know where it's going, and we have an obligation. If someone is asked to help you, they should have the right to that information of where every penny of that dollar is spent.
Why are you opposed to the North Carolina law, then, that would require essentially what you are voluntarily already doing?
Well, the Bill 728, I believe is the number, is one that would license religious organizations. I don't mind the disclosure part. I'm in favor of disclosure. I think we ought to have disclosure. But when a government says, we're going to decide who will have a license to preach the gospel, or who will not have that license, that's dangerous. And then, as far as I can ascertain, here in North Carolina, it gets down to a committee of about 3 men that will decide who will preach and who will not preach, and maybe down to even one leader there. And who in the world is going to sit on this committee? Would King Solomon, in all of his wisdom, even want to sit on this committee of North Carolina? I think that's the danger. Disclosure, I have no problem with that. But it's the licensing. For instance, if you have a crusade, well, let's say Billy Graham, since I'm sure you're not preaching crusades these days.
Not yet, not yet. I'm still fully employed.
Okay. But say Billy Graham or any other church or a denomination wanted to have a citywide crusade. Many citywide crusade budgets are far in excess of the $25,000 limit. That means they would have to obtain a license. How long will it take to get that license? Would it take 3 months? Would it take 6 months? And then who's going to rule on this committee? Whether the Mormon Church or the Catholic Church or the Jewish Appeal or whatever would come into immunity. Who wants to make those kind of decisions? I think the laws we have already on the books against fraud are adequate to protect the American people. And I believe that if an organization misuses money and there is fraud, they ought to be prosecuted and so forth. But I feel like just to put more laws, more encumbersome paperwork for religious organizations to continue to have to apply for licenses to preach the gospel, I feel this is absolutely contrary to the First Amendment.
I can understand your position, certainly, with the Praise the Lord Club, which has, as you pointed out, issued its own independent financial audit. But how is the public to be protected against groups like Reverend Moon's organization, for instance, which is far from the middle of the religious community, or the Hare Krishnas, or the Children of God, or some of these other organizations? How is the public going to know? If there isn't a law requiring financial disclosure, how do we know how the Unification Church spends its money? How do we know what they do with the funds that they solicit on the street selling boutonnieres and books?
Well, I feel like if they don't want to disclose, I feel the public should not support people who do not want to tell you where the money's going, first of all. And if I said before, as I said before, if there's fraud, then the fraud ought to be taken care of in the normal due process of law. But now, a group of evangelicals, about 30 of us, met in Chicago just a few days ago for, I believe, one of the most historic meetings in the history of Christianity. And we have voluntarily come together, and we're kind of an ad hoc group, but we're going to have a full-fledged organization of some type. We'll come out. We voted 100% that for voluntary disclosure of all of our funds, and that's the top 30 ministries, including Oral Roberts, Billy Graham, Rex Humbert's playing with Snowden, otherwise he would have been there, Jerry Falwell, Youth with a Mission, Youth for Christ, the National Religious Broadcasters, and it just goes on and on. 30 of the top, the people that touch the multitudes of the world today, and we voted to form this regulatory kind of well, I don't know. I talk a lot, don't I?
I want to re-ask some of those questions. I guess.
What is that word I'm looking for? Not regulatory. We want accrediting is a better word, because it's not necessarily putting it's a group that's not putting their seal of approval. In other words, in religion, you know how we all have different beliefs, and so it's hard for one group to say, well, we approve of you, because we can't say we approve of all your doctrine. You know, but we're having a standard. I think that's a better word. We're meeting a standard, and when a person receives the accrediting in the standard from this new organization, they'll know they've met the criteria, and even the criteria is just being set out. But it is. We voted unanimously for disclosure. So most all of them have been disclosing, but hadn't put the importance upon it as we are now. What we want to do is we want to do what the government or some of the leaders in government are asking. We want to do it voluntarily, so there doesn't have to be laws, and have it so wide open that anybody can look right into it. Your job is a hard job.
Oh, it's a hard job.
No, but isn't it, though? I mean.